Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Zack Snyder's Justice League, the spoiler edition. So, spoiler alert. I have a spoiler-free review linked in the description down below. This is my spoiler review. So, without further ado, I enjoyed the Joss Whedon one enough, but I definitely enjoyed this one a whole lot more. And I decided to rewatch it recently, and I still really enjoy it, but I have found, or at least remembered and refound, a whole lot more flaws with it than the first time around that I watched it, or I guess maybe even the second time. So this is my third time watching. But there are some things, and I think that part of it is that the movies that have come out since then have complicated things. So, for example, you have Superman being so much more powerful than all of these guys. I still think they overpowered him, especially because Wonder Woman, I feel like, should have been, like, equal to his power. And then, you know, the Atlanteans also. So I think that they overpowered Superman, but it's also kind of his shtick. So, sure, whatever. They can have him overpowered. But one of the things that bugged me is that you have the bad guy's name with the fancy armor, whatever his name is, dragging Atlanteans up onto the shore like they're nothing, and just the Atlanteans, both under the water and then above the water, seem very, very weak, just physically. And that doesn't quite jive with how strong the Atlanteans are, like how much ass-kicking they could do because of having to survive in the deep, dark ocean, like the amount of musculature that they would have to have, and showed in the Aquaman movie. It doesn't really jive with how weak they were shown here. Another thing that doesn't make much sense is that, so you had Aquaman meeting with Willem Dafoe's character, and I get from watching the commentary of whichever version that, like, they weren't quite sure how they were going to do, like, talking underwater. Yeah, they figured out a different way of just like, oh, they're just going to talk underwater for Aquaman, but in this movie they weren't quite sure how they figured it out, so they were like, okay, they're going to have the power to, like, whoop, 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 whoosh, and then magic air bubble that they all talk in. So, I'm not a physics major. You know, I'm not Albert Einstein. Maybe I'm missing some physics and how things work, whatever. But they do this at really any depth of ocean, is they just whoosh, and there's your air bubble to talk in. And yet, when the tunnel is breached and all of that water is coming in, Aquaman is like, with his spear trident, the more than 3 trident. And he's like doing that to hold back the water as the rest of the Justice League is running up onto the crawler. And first of all, they don't run very fast. They pause a whole lot longer. Again, making the whole, like, I'm sacrificing myself type thing. Yeah, he wasn't sacrificing himself, but still, he's clearly doing that to give them time to get on there. And they're like, what? And just watch. Anywho, but the fact that he was struggling with that, he was getting pushed back from all that water pressure, like, how is that different than the water bubble they were making under thousands of feet of water? You know, that just doesn't make any sense. I did like that Mira, terrible person though she may be, the actor, the character, did the cool thing where, like, hey, she can control water like they're doing the water bubble things. I'm going to just fucking water bend the water out of you. Like, she was the only one out of fucking everyone until Superman that was actually having an effect on this guy. Was because she was water bending his fucking water out of his blood and shit. That was genius. I liked that. I think it's cool. Why didn't Aquaman do that? So yeah, that was fun. I definitely liked how they had Clark Kent come back to life in this one better than the Justice League version. The Zack Snyder version definitely made more sense and worked a bit better. And I know they fixed whatever CGI people had a problem with. So this was a good time. But yes, yeah, so there was that flaw, and then you also had the Amazonians getting their asses kicked. I don't understand why Wonder Woman is ridiculously powered, and literally none of the other Amazonians are. Like, not her mother, not anybody else. Like, why is she the only one with powers, and the rest of them are just like, well, we're going to be slightly more sturdy than the average human, but that's about it. And their whole thing is, I don't understand how, so Desaad and all of his people came to Earth in the time of heroes, and the Amazonians teamed up, and it's like, okay, cool. But y'all motherfuckers just had bows and arrows, and you still just have bows and arrows. And And I think that part of what bugged me, getting back to Superman being overpowered, is that you see the 50 cals hitting him and actually having an effect, like tink, and then like disforming, like having an impact crater flesh bubble thing on his face when he's getting hit by not just handguns, but like 50 cal. So yeah, they're a bit more, but if that can affect him that much, I feel like, bigger explosions or bigger, higher velocity rounds or a Sea-Wiz type thing could have an effect on the Desaad's, especially because once Desaad's armor gets like stripped away from him like Superman, then all of a sudden he's able to get like stabbed through and get his horn cut off and everything else and like his neck cut off. So realistically, if they just aimed for his face and were fast enough, that the shiny armor guy seems to be just, strong but not impervious as he is with his armor. Like he has a big old open spot with his armor, and not once do we see it covered. Also his hands, not impervious. So there was just some power disparities, and like the parademons, they were way too strong against the super people that we see them fight against versus the people. So they're either strong enough to hold their own against a super person, or Batman shouldn't be able to kick their butts. Just saying. Yeah, I did like the inclusion of Cyborg in this. I liked his arc a whole lot more. Another thing that is just a symptom of DC not planning their shit out, which, Marvel plans their shit out and they've come up with fucking season, or, phase 4, phase 5 or whatever is just garbage. The Ant-Man and before, from Endgame to Ant-Man was garbage. For the most, like, we're not counting Spider-Man, that was basically outside of that. Anywho, getting back to this, they have Barry do the turn back time thing. Like, you have him approach the speed of light to make the, bing, touch the thing, and then you have him go back in time to fix the world explosion. And yet in the Flash movie, they're like, some things are just not meant to, like, you can't overcome them. They're always going to happen, Barry. Well, which is it? You know what I mean? You can go back in this time for this event, but not this one because the universe says so. That's a little bit of lazy writing, or, continuity problems within their cinematic universe. Anywho, I know I've talked about a bunch of things that I didn't like in this movie, but I liked pretty much everything. I liked the struggle that they had with the fighting that they have with the individual ones. They always had good energy, good use in the environment, and good pacing. I liked the armor that they did, and the change that they made for the CGI guy, for the guy with the horns and the fancy armor, definitely made him a lot more menacing, a lot more logical as like the big bad guy that all the Justice League has to fight against. And yeah, I liked Barry's moment. It was lots of fun. Cyborg's thing, like all of their individual stories were a lot of fun and good stuff. But yeah, I also like that Zack Snyder has it divided into like chapters or parts, so it creates a good pausing point because it's 4 hours long, give it thereabouts. So it gives you points to like, you can take a break and come back. The epilogue was probably the weakest of it, especially because all things point to there not being a continuation of Zack Snyder verse, which is a real disappointment because I think that if they had just leaned into the Zack Snyder verse from the beginning and then, stuck with it, because Man of Steel was excellent, and then Batman v Superman, the director's cut, not the theater, but the director's cut was excellent, and then this version was excellent, and so had they just continued on with the Zack Snyder verse, I think that they would have had good box office returns, but they got scared and wanted to marvel up with the quips and make it lighter tone, and that's not DC, so that was the problem. But now they brought in the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy to direct the new DC universe. Hopefully he fixes it or makes it better, but like, DC, if you just had some faith in Zack Snyder. Yeah, I know that he had some personal problems during the events of this movie, but like, you still could continue with the Zack Snyder style and verse. But anywho, long story short, this is fun. Epilogue, you can probably kind of skip it. It's fine. And a bit too much blur focus, in my opinion, for that. But yeah, overall, good time. Give it a shot. That's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Bye.